I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still.
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee.
And Steve Newby.
This is the original Five Fingers of Death right here.
But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail.
You're going to count us in?
Am I?
I don't know. I'm just wondering. The microphone isn't on your belly because then we'll hear your digestive.
Me pork me pork bun going down.
On one of them, you could hear it. You could hear some digestion. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's down by my stomach. Okay, I've had a drink of my coffee.
Yeah.
I can't reach me sweeties.
Well, would you want to get them? Do you want to get them ready just in case?
No, I'll just be crunching all the way through it.
Okay. All right then. Well, we'll make a start, guys. Welcome to the Kung Fu Podcast. My name's James Still. I'm joined as ever by my teacher, Mr. Steve Newby. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah. We're on number 11. This is number 11.
We did our celebration last.
We did.
Yeah, last time.
Yeah.
Did our celebration.
We
had a donut.
Yes, we did. Stale donut. Yeah. Hey,
yeah, that's true. How did you know?
Well, no, I know. We are, yeah. Anyway, we have been. So we've been sent some messages by some fans, I guess. Just some general inquiries, and I figured we will just read them out. Well, actually, I'll just read one out, and we'll open the show with a little discussion about this person's message. What I'll do, guys, if you're listening and you want to send us a message, if you don't specify whether or not we can use your name in a message, we won't use your name. We'll keep it anonymous. All right, and that's and whatever. We don't care if you want to shout out, send us your name and just give us permission. If not, don't worry. Oh, hang on. I was meant to mute that burp then.
Well, like yesterday's belch.
I keep unmuting. Hang on a second. Hang on. Oh, where's my clean feed? That's better. Right. Anyway, so. So this we got a message from a guy today. Says, "Hi James, hope you don't mind me getting in touch, and I hope you and your club are staying safe at the moment. Okay, because yes, we are on lockdown." He goes on to say, "I've been listening to your podcast and I like it a lot. In fact, my only wish is that it could be more technical." Okay. Well, thanks. What do you think, Stick? The thing is,
I'd love to be more technical.
Yeah.
I would love to be more technical, but you've got to be specific about the questions. If they ask us a question about a particular form or a particular aspect of Lau, or which is what we do. I mean, I can obviously offer my opinion of something.
Yeah.
Whether people will agree with it or not, it's up to them.
Sure.
But I can only offer my opinion about anything else, and my experience with anything else.
Yeah.
But Lau is my specific, starter for 10.
Yeah, right. It's your speciality subject. Anyway, he goes on to say, it could be more technical. To this end, I wonder if you ever had any materials, if you could send me any material about Lau, ? My instructors are fantastic. A lot of the technical bits get left out. And he puts no idea why in brackets. And I'd love to have some stuff about the history, techniques, applications, Chinese words, off-syllabus tangents, tactics, ethics, spirituality, etc., to absorb alongside the syllabus and physical training. And he goes on to say, I'm aware that this really doesn't exist in any formal sense, but wondered if you or Steve had any things you'd collected from over time. Yada 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 yada. Yeah. Oh, and I hope this isn't presumptuous of me, but I'm frustrated that my searches turn up the barest scraps of info. He's talking about on Lau Gar, and most of that is negative style bashing. Don't talk about negative style bashing. Anyway, no. So we had that message, and again, I won't give out the guy's name. Again, unless you specify. So, Pitts, I want to talk about that. My instructors are fantastic, but a lot of the technical bits get left out. Now, I would always say to people, I consider myself very lucky, and I'm not the only one of your students, because you've had a lot of ex-students say to you over the years, sometimes write nice letters to you, and they sort of go, they go on to say, Steve, we're so happy we trained with you, because not only did you give us all the traditional science, but you also taught us the competition side of it too. So in other words, you've got a few strings to your bow there, Mr. Newbie. What do you say about that? I mean, and this guy's sort of thing, saying he feels that some technical bits are being left out.
Well, as you say, but some instructors, they've got, I'm not going to call it a limited, because that's not fair. Yeah. They've got a specific direction or agenda that they like teaching, whether they're competitors or whether they're traditionalists or whether they're technicians. They tend to stick to one kind of direction when they teach, and they aim, to teach the people the things that they are interested in. So there's two different ways of looking at teachers. One is a teacher, teaches because he wants to be the teacher, or he teaches because he literally wants to teach. He wants, he wants people to learn. Yeah. So there are two different ways you can look at it. You see, often people just end up being teachers by accident. Either their instructor has already gone and they end up running the class, or something happens to their instructor or whatever, they end up running the class. But otherwise, people go, they've kind of got a calling and they just want to be teachers. And that was kind of me, really. I just always wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah, you're like a blues brother. You're on a mission from God.
I'm on a mission, yeah. I was always on a mission. I just love the concept of teaching. I just love people asking questions and gaining information.
Do you think that a teacher, I mean, we've spoken before about a style being comprised of many different people with many different areas of expertise, etc. And we also spoke about sort of an individual carrying on a style. I mean, for example, if you're just into, I mean, it's never preferable to just be, and I'll split it into two camps, right? Traditional and competition fighting. It's never preferable just to be, one or the other. It's always going to be preferable to do the both, right? But you never.
Both camps test each other. If you do the two together, they test each other. Do the techniques work in a competitive arena or in a fighting arena, depending on the rules, of course. Yeah. Or, does it work the other way around? So it's just a matter of you've got to have the two, I think. Yeah. Because if you have lots of techniques but they don't work in a competitive arena, then you're kind of doing them for nothing. Not just when I say competitive arena, I don't mean purely semi-contact or purely full contact or purely whatever. I just generally mean fighting, training. Yeah. And I guess, although having said that, I guess a lot of traditionalists would argue that, well, we don't do competition, but we like fighting, so we fight a little bit more aggressively or without pads or whatever. But there's limitations there.
Oh, yeah.
There's dangers, and therefore you apply limitations to it.
Yeah.
Other people in some certain styles will say, well, we always kick to the shins, and sometimes you might be running your club and then some new guy comes in, he's done something else, and the first thing you see him do is try to kick people around the legs, and you think, well, that's really easy to do. If you're going to do that, then you're going to take everything away. It's like when you're doing sticky hands. As soon as people start kicking the legs, which is an obvious advantage, you stop learning sticky hands, and all you're doing is you lengthen the range, and now you can't do sticky hands anymore. So it's the same with
it becomes like what we would deem it sort of free fighting, really, wouldn't we? Or,
but it close. I mean, shin kicks, kicking around the legs, whatever, are absolutely perfect. We will never take that away. That is, one of the ideal things to do. It's one of the first things you should do in a self-defense situation if you're going to use the legs. Because remember, I really try to keep people away from the legs if they are, not martial artists and not capable of being able to stand properly or move properly. Sure. So yes, I absolutely agree with kicking to the legs, leg kicking, stamping on the feet, everything. But if you do that within a sparring situation, you're going to lose the ability to learn the hands and so on. So once people get in close, and they're very close, you have to keep on moving backwards. As you're moving backwards, it's going to be very difficult for you to kick. And therefore you're not going to be able to, you haven't trained your hands as much as you could have done, because all you ever wanted to do was do Yorkshire shin kicking, and that's it. And you get the biggest flat cap in the room, but it doesn't help when you come to do the rest of it. So you've got to apply certain rules at certain times to be able to train certain things. You can't just throw everything in at once. Right. And that's that.
Talking about going back to sort of instructors, so to speak, there really is no. One of the great things about being a part of an organisation like the BKFA is the diversity of skill amongst loads of different groups, if you like, in it. Because the great thing is you can invite this instructor to come to your club and teach this. I mean, it happened to us when we were doing a lion dance, stuff like that. And we've been to courses with Sean Vieira and Sharon Gill, and absolutely loved it. And of course, we had the George Shaw come down once, and that was just incredible. So, but it really is such a
and Yao, of course.
Well, last Yao came down, he gave us a talking to. I remember that, and I think I asked him a stupid question, and he had a go at me or something. No, what did I ask him? I said, I can't remember now, but it was funny. It was funny, and but I really enjoyed that when Master Yo came down. Actually, nice.
Yeah, he's been to several. I've took him up to Scotland and various places to do courses for us. So on the whole, generally people enjoy seeing and enjoy the courses immensely. The summer courses are always good, but it totally depends on what you're going for, what your intention is. So everyone, like you say, has got different ideas of what Lau is, or what Kung Fu in general is. They've got they're at specific periods in their training, so some things will appeal to them and some things won't. Some things they're going to be capable of, and some things they're not. So it totally depends on each individual, I guess, each individual's preference. But as you say, it is quite diverse. You have got some amazing competitive stable there in all sorts of different areas. And some traditionalists who tend to favour one sort of direction or another: weaponry, long forms, sticky hands, the syllabus, the dissection of the actual style, of the techniques. So you've got a lot of options there and it's great to get an opportunity to do all of it.
I always think I'm very privileged because you're kind of a jack of all trades, aren't you? Really, you're
Yeah,
kind of like
master of none. Master wing.
Master wing. Yeah. No, but but I mean, I remember when I first started, it was like all I wanted to do was lots and lots of sticking hands because I'd read all the books and stuff like this now, and I used to bug you and it's but then I'll go through a cycle of I just want to do competition fighting, or I just want to do this or that, or weapons or something. I'm going through a sort of a weapon phase at the moment, but what I love is the resource of you, because you've paid attention. This is what I'm saying. You've had to, and I don't know why you're that way inclined. Actually, I've never asked you that. Why?
Because because I love teaching, and therefore I love learning.
Yeah.
I enjoy learning. I enjoy questioning the process, and that's why I enjoy people asking me questions. I love logical argument.
Yeah.
My wife bought me a T-shirt which said on the front of it said, "Mr. Logic is a pain in the ass." Because every time she argues with me, I just think of a logical explanation or a reason or whatever, and she gets on her nerves.
Yeah, you can't really win an argument with you, can you?
It's just, you just keep talking, be a politician, keep talking, change the subject, skirt round it, come back to it later.
Yeah.
When you've learned, you realise what they've actually asked you.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting. Yeah, like I said, I just feel very glad that you can offer so many different things, and no, that's good. Why is it? Why is it? Do you think that? Yeah, I don't often throw compliments your way.
No.
There you go. There's one for free. Why is it? Do you think that there's not a lot of information out there on Lau Gar? I mean, what? Why is it? Do you think?
When we started, when the association started, I should say, it was very limited within a certain area, obviously.
Yeah.
Mastio did go to various places and was driven around before he got a driving license by a guy called Mike Lavender, who eventually started clubs in Scotland many years ago, and he got driven to places like Sheffield and whatever, and he started events there, which became clubs. And obviously, these people that were teaching were as orange sashes by the time they started teaching, pretty much the third grade.
Yeah.
So, but you could get away with that in those days because the knowledge was very sparse. So yes, the problem is, of course, then these people continue to teach it and develop it, but some of them may not have been capable or not interested in learning more or gaining more. So many of them were specifically interested in fighting. Many of them were specifically interested in, the syllabus, but maybe they thought they knew enough. And then, of course, you've got the people who desperately wanted to learn. So you have people coming from Newcastle, like Keith Thomas and so on, and like Morag coming over from Ireland, and you got obviously John Russell used to come up from Bristol to Birmingham, and so on. So you got these people who are willing to travel, and of course me coming from Scotland down to Birmingham weekly, or every so many weeks, I think it was eventually. Yeah. I was certainly driving up to Scotland on a weekly basis.
Yeah, you used to go very often. I remember when you were in Hereford.
Yeah, it was a weekly basis. I was going up there. Yeah, and anyway, so it's obviously had its ups and downs as an association, and therefore some areas kind of had to regroup if they've lost an instructor, or if there's been some wayward instructor, or someone's chosen to leave to do something else, or in fact unfortunately died, as George Wellington and various other people have passed. So we have a lot of changes and a lot of alterations, and then it totally depends on whether that instructor is going to be successful, because he may have a different approach to the other guy, especially if he moves into the area or is dispatched to move into that area, like I was to go to Scotland and so on. So I kind of, you choose your areas, but I only went up to Scotland as a holiday for 2 weeks, and I stayed for 8 years. Such is life.
It was pretty. It's fair to say though that when you got to Scotland, in terms of like the skill of some of the people there, it was pretty. It wasn't consistent.
It was
shall we
dire.
Was
let's
it?
say dire.
I mean, what was the worst? What was the worst? I mean, you don't have to name names, but what was it like? What was going on?
It was full of wonderful characters, great people, really nice individuals. They all wanted to learn.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you some of the experience I had when I got there. I went to one of the clubs in Fife. I was taken there to see the class and to get in. It was in a school.
Right.
Glenrothes, and as you go into the school, you had to go, to find the way in. It was, how big schools can be. You go in the school, then you got to get to the hall, but before you can get to your hall, you have to go through the Taekwondo class, then through the changing rooms at the end of that hall, that gym, back through into the other changing rooms, and then out into the hall where the students were training for the Lau Gar, and there they stood there with their jeans on and a sash around their jeans.
Very 80s. Very 80s. Did they have mullets as well, Mr. Newton? Drinking on brew.
I remember Jim Cairns meeting Jim Cairns for the first time. Bless him. He was a first degree at the time. And I went to him, and there were 2 people in the class. Tom was teaching 2 people in the class, and Jim was in the corner practicing his sword, having a go at the sword. And I could see that he didn't have a lot of understanding of it. And I went over to him and I says, "Oh, can I use your sword and I'll show you this, that and the other, whatever." And I went, "Oh, if you do this and you do that and then this is how this works," and so on, I'm not going to go into it. And he took the sword off me, looked at the sword and threw it on the floor.
Oh God, that's brilliant.
Like it stopped, like it had stopped working, like the batteries had died in it or something after I'd let go of it.
Oh, that's great.
It was.
Oh, bless him. He's done really well for himself, Jim.
Jim. Christ, I think he's a 6th degree now. I think he's done well. He's not in the best of health at the moment, so we all wish him. All wish him well. Everybody wish him well. And his, I think his son is a 5th degree, Mark.
That's right, Mark.
Mark is one of these guys. He's quite a phenomenon, actually. He's got a speech impediment. Okay. The second he teaches, it disappears.
Wow, that is interesting.
He can talk to you, and he's got a stutter. And then the second he speaks to you, the second he starts to teach in front of a class, no stuttering, nothing. It's just perfect.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that just gives you some idea that he loves to do it.
It must be a different part of your brain than you're accessing when you're doing the martial arts, or
singers have the same. Singers have the same. I've heard singers come on to like Britain's Got Talent or The Voice or whatever, and they're stuttering, they can barely speak, and then the music starts and they just sing perfectly. So it's amazing.
I think your impediment is that you talk too much. But that's
absolutely. I can talk a glass eye to sleep. Believe me.
No, I love it, really. I love it. What else happened up in Scotland rather?
Sorry.
What else? What other stories have you got?
I only had to touch people and then they kind of shivered. And when I did the first gradings and that, they were all shaking in their boots. I mean, it was like a huge... it was a huge grading. And
how big were your gradings back then? Because they were...
It was about 200 people or so.
Jesus.
Taking a grading at a time.
Wow.
But I had a specific way of doing it, you see. So people would say, oh, how can you grade that many people? And remember, it's all in one go, but it wasn't a grading like people walk up individually and do something in front of you. I hate that. I hate when people do that, because I just think that all you're doing is scaring the guy. He's not going to perform well. He's much safer and happier performing amongst other people. If you're good enough, you're going to see mistakes. If you're good enough, you're not going to be sitting on a panel. You're going to walk around. You're going to have all your subsidiary instructors around all the different clubs. You're going to have them around, and they're going to check people out as well, because remember, they're looking at other people's students as well, so they might point people out. But all you're looking for is people making mistakes, and you can spot mistakes. If you know the syllabus, you can spot mistakes.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. So it was very easy to be able to do gradings in that sense, in that way. And the atmosphere was amazing. Absolutely amazing, incredible. And everybody loved it, of course, and so you don't have to look for anyone who's doing it right. You have to look for people who are doing it wrong. That's it. And you generally know from classes anyway, if you're close to everybody. Let's face it, I was teaching the classes, I was visiting the classes, I knew the people that were teaching the classes. Despite how big it was, I'm going to know who's got problems and who hasn't, and who can't do the syllabus and who can. And it might be different for other groups, and other organisations tend to, bring in some top Nabu is some kind of 8th Dan or professor or whatever, and or principal, and comes in and sits there and then just proceeds to scare the crap out of people just because they think that's how the grading's got to be. Well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe grading should be scary. I think gradings are a celebration of what you've trained. Absolutely. And all you're doing is proving to everybody what you've done. And if you haven't done it, then you know that, and I wouldn't take the grading then if I were you, if you don't think you've done it well enough. So that's why I always gave people the opportunity to choose for themselves whether they were going to take a grading. Unfortunately, I did that even, when they were going to take the grading with Mastio with the black sashes, because Mastio took the black sash gradings at that time. And so, there was one guy, 7 hours, convincing him not to take his grading. We've talked about him already. And my biggest mistake. There you go.
Oh God, I remember talking about Scotland. Do you remember when we were in Hereford and we had a class? I think we were looking to open a class in Ross-on-Wye, and some guy called your number, and because you used the same number for the clubs in Scotland than you did for the ones down in the Midlands, and some guy phoned up and you said, "Answer the phone, James," and I did, and he said. He was Scottish. He said, "Hey there, mate, I'm looking for a class in Kinross." And I went, I thought he meant Ross-on-Wye. I said, "Listen, mate, there's no need to swear at me." But obviously I thought he went effing Ross. And I was like... I say, what? And I hung up.
Oh, you tell me that now. You never told me that before.
I thought I told you that. I was like, well, who's that? How rude. Anyway, No, that's funny.
Looking for a club for Kinross. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah. No, we had some good times, some funny times, Yeah, honest to God. Right, what else? I've been watching, funny enough, so I've got a big gripe with...
Pretty much every style except Lau.
Pretty much, but I'm a bitch, I was watching the other day, right? So, at the moment, right, there's a... Kung Fu is kind of in vogue, right, in as much as there's a lot of kids organisations at the moment who call them, Kung Fu Kids, and, so a lot of people who have, let's say, spent a considerable amount of time of their martial art sort of journey, if you like, studying karate or some Japanese art or whatever, right? And then to what some of them do, because I follow some groups on Facebook. They'll sort of profess to teach kung fu, so they'll rename what they're teaching, and they'll just generically call it, kung fu. Now, obviously, it's not kung fu. It's just they're just using a name, but it's the implication, right? And so, what my question to you is: I've seen some styles do a version, right, of stick in hands, chi sao, which, quite frankly, has nothing in common with stick in hands, right? Mm-hmm. But and the reason is, it's like I find it hard to understand that when you've got a style like, we'll just say a generic karate, okay, venture into the realms of chi sao or stick in hands, which is blatantly, there is no denying it, which is a Chinese method, all right, that you will find in Chinese arts of, establishing, sensitivity in close quartered combat drills, whatnot. Okay, so I'm just confused as to how they can sort of justify teaching that sort of version of it, which is quite frankly ugly. What do you say to people who have spent most of their time doing karate or whatever, and then they start to try and teach a version of stick in hands? And obviously I can't give a demonstration, and I'm not going to name names, but it just looks ugly. What do you think of these instructors who try and do that? And
Well, first of all, it's a compliment that they want to learn something different, because they haven't got it within their range of skills.
Yeah.
But karate doesn't really work with sensitivity. It's really based on, high energy, if you like, strength, power, whatever. Of course, people would argue that because if you become fluid in it, then you loosen up a little bit, and there you go. But just as Bruce Lee said, a karate punch is like an iron bar, and a kung fu punch is like a tube with a ball in it, with a chain and whatever.
It go wang.
It go wang. So there's the difference straight there.
Yeah.
But of course, people are. I mean, the main reason people profess to teach kung fu and kind of can get away with it, because most of those students tend to be kids, is simply they're following the movie interests, like Ninja Turtles and that sort of thing. Don't you think that's weird, really? Because they're ninjas, which is Japanese, and then Ninja Turtle, and then they're doing like kung fu-y kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it rhymes. It rhymes. Kung fu kids. I'm not having a go at people teaching kids and marketing whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't think my gripe is with kids organisations. Not at all. Teach kids whatever, as long as they're having fun. But it's just when they branch into the realm of teaching adults and they call it kung fu, right? And these poor souls don't have the foggiest idea that these people are just making it up.
Well, we know that a lot of people from Shotokan, several people from Shotokan started up their own kind of ideology of, like, call it kung fu. One in Scotland called Tibetan kung fu. There is no such thing as Tibetan kung fu, which was ideal for him to start that.
Prove it.
Yeah, that's right. And then he's probably been sitting on a mountain for 10 years. Like the Dim Mat guy.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, mate. I've got something special for you after this. Go on, keep going.
And you yourself have no other Shotokan kind of people that do that kind of thing, who try to teach kung fu. Doesn't work, basically. It looks awful. No, it looks awful. It looks awful. The movements are completely out. I mean, I went to a place in Hereford, and we are dissing people here.
Yeah, but
I don't intend to diss individuals.
Yeah.
No. It's the concept of trying to teach a martial art that you have absolutely no idea about.
Right, exactly.
And when I went to Hereford, I went to watch a guy, because obviously I was teaching in Hereford at the time, and I wanted to see what my competition was. I saw this advert, 8 styles, eight animal kung fu it was.
Yeah.
Right. So it had the usual, the tiger, the leopard, the crane, the snake, and the dragon, that sort of thing, and then it also had like monkey and praying mantis and all this kind of thing added onto it. Yeah. So it had all these different animals. So I went to watch it, and he looked like a really nice guy. He was genuine. He was really, nice to people. So when he had a young black sash with him, he stood at the front of the class. He had several people, brand new, quite a good calling, good, and I sat down with the parents and stuff like that, just to, with my cap over my eyes, just to sort of watch him from a side.
Yeah.
And the first thing he did was he showed them a form, which I can remember to this day because it was so bloody stupid. It started off with a kung fu movement, and the rest was karate. The rest was karate moves, closed fist, powerful block, etc., etc. And then he stepped across and did a low movement, which didn't make any sense whatsoever. And that was his first part of this form he was teaching.
Right.
But the next thing that came out of his mouth was, if you go to a club that tells you to attack people, in other words, in the training, you are learning to attack. He said, leave it immediately, because Kung Fu is about defense, not about attack. And I thought to myself, Dick, because how can you possibly be a good defender if you never experience someone attacking you? You need someone to attack you in the best possible way, strongest possible way, fastest possible way, or whatever, so that you can learn to defend in those ways.
Yeah.
You need a variety of social interaction with different people in order to understand how people attack, and you've got to have people who really want to attack.
Yeah, we've definitely. We've talked a lot about this on the other podcasts. Yeah,
sure. And this.
I was going to ask, like, when you, because a form like you just described, is blatantly going to be made up, right?
Yeah,
blatantly. Listen, if you're professing to teach kung fu, but you can tell you've got the an eye for it, so to speak. But how do you? I've seen some ropey weapons forms, like in these so-called sort of new age Tai Chi groups and kung fu groups. How do you tell by looking at a form, just in the simplest terms? How do you tell that it's possibly made up by someone? What's the logical? What I'm really getting at is, what gives a form, a set, a pattern, or whatever, credibility in your eyes when you look
logic.
At it?
Logic is the answer.
Right, and so what do you mean by that? If you,
it means that it has a logical outcome. It means that it has a logical reason to do it. Right. You're blocking, you're cutting, you're slashing.
Not just
spinning
with swords.
With anything. Oh, let's just use a pole as an example. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Robin Hood never taught martial arts, and nor do Robin Hood movies. So why are you using a stick, a pole, holding it in the center, giving you 2 feet on the one side and 2 feet on the other and 2 feet in the middle between your hands, when the other guy will hold it at the end and have pretty much 6 foot of pole to smack you with? How are you going to get close to him? He's just going to smack your fingers the second you lift that pole, and he can do it from a range that you can't even reach. So by the time you've slipped your pole through your hands to attempt to do it, it's too late. You've been hit. You've been poked in the face, in the throat, in the chest, in the or the little toe. So or you've been whacked around the shins and the knees and the hips and the face. And it's a complete and utter waste of time. That is my attitude towards people who try to be Robin Hood when they do sticks.
But talking about that, like, you're not. We wouldn't profess to diss any competitive weapons forms people, because the essence of what they do. You should just look at sort of bow staff, when they're jumping around, doing backflips, spinning the thing because it's a light aluminium pole, that obviously doesn't have to make any sort of logical sense in terms of fighting applications, because all they're going to do is just spin it around fast, look good, and all the rest of it, and get.
Yeah, but well, that's my argument. It should have a logical sense.
Yes, it should.
But the problem is, as they've advanced from real weaponry to light facsimile weaponry, they can do more with it because it can move faster. So they can, they start spin it around like some kind of, top, and it has absolutely no logical sense at all, and it cannot even defend you. I mean, look at the swords that people use now that are so flimsy that the whole concept of doing the form is to stab it out as hard as you can so that it flickers at the end, so it flashes and vibrates at the end and makes a noise. Do you know, in the early days, right? There's a karate group, a karate organization or style that decided that they would buy this specific uniform, right? They bought this specific uniform. The reason being is that when they punched, it would flap and make a noise, right? And it would make a noise. So they did it specifically so their punches
sound more powerful.
And the worst thing about it is when they punched, they turned their hand upside down, so that the top of the hand was on top, and the fist, fingers, thumbs underneath, right, like a flat punch. But they turned it early so they could then flick it upwards to create this flap,
right,
with the tunic, right, and the noise of the tunic sounded brilliant, but the fists were useless. The punches were absolutely useless because of it, and that's what they did it for. Well, the same thing now is happening, of course, for many years now, is happening with weaponry. They choose all sorts of weaponry. We were talking about butterfly knives the other day, and how I've designed, the butterfly knives Jim was making in Scotland. I designed them so that they would be useful. So that because I'd go to courses, I'd go to like Mastia's Black Sash course, and there'd be a group of third degrees doing the butterfly knives, and you could see the cuts on their hands because of the weapons they had. They were flat, square metal, right, flat metal around the tang and so on, and the blade far too high to get your thumb around it. So they'd take the skin off the bottom of their thumb. They would take the skin off the center, the mouth of between the fingers and the thumb, between the forefinger and the thumb, and they would cut the center of their palm whenever they trained. So what do you think would happen to people who train with weaponry like that?
They're not going to want to train it as often as possible.
They're not going to want to train, and they're going to hack instead of cut. They're going to hack instead of slice. So they're because they're trying to keep, in other words, they lose the use of their wrists because they can't allow the things to move, and it hurts them. So I saw a lot of people in pain there, bleeding, and just because they were using awful weaponry. Now, and then I've seen plastic weaponry as well, but even the plastic weaponry is better than them. And but then you see people, as I say, with the swords, with the very light, you watch these people in demonstrations with these sticks, swinging them around, spinning around, throwing them up in the air. It has really 90% of the form has absolutely no martial connotation at all. But it doesn't matter to people, the judges. They go, "Oh, that looks pretty. That looks great." Well, for me, I'm sorry, and that's why over the years you've seen less and less Lau forms in the British Kung Fu Association Championships. All you see are people turn up with flimsy weapons or with a completely different form from another style that's much longer and elaborate, so that they can show off with these, because it's the only way they believe they can win. And they're right. They're probably right.
No doubt. But I mean, look at the heavy weaponry in Lau. All right, Kwon Do. I'll talk about the Kwon Do, Tiger Fork as well. But if you look at the Kwon Do, you can buy wushu versions of it. It's a very lightweight things. Now, how the hell can you I mean, the whole point of doing a heavy weaponry is to wield it, so you don't actually carry the weight of it. Now, but when you've got a weapon like the Kwando, which has to be heavy for you to understand it, when it's light and you're flinging it around like God knows what, you get a total false sense of what the form is.
Yeah,
you know. I mean,
there is a similar weapon in the Japanese which was specifically for women, which is a pole with a nice blade on the end of it. Forgive me, but I don't know the name of it. I've forgotten it. But it's a long kind of sword blade on the end of a long pole, and that's for women to defend the villages and whatever. Overall, it was women training it.
Yeah.
And that's quite light, of course. Yeah. That's a lot lighter, but it's a completely different aspect of training.
When you can explain it. I mean, take for example, as we know, we've discussed the eyebrow pole. You would cut it down to your height, your eyebrow height, which is the same as your reach. But you can also customize or fit a sword to your stature, couldn't you? How would you make sure the sword is the right size for you?
Oh, well, usually you've got to buy the sword to your stature, because you'll hold it in your palm, and then the blade will touch your earlobe.
Right. When you say you hold
with a straight arm, you hold not the cup. You just basically are holding it. As if you were doing the bow, you're holding it in. You're holding the grip in the palm of your hand, down straight with a straight arm down to your hip, and then you lean the sword against you, and the earlobe, when it reaches your earlobe, that's perfect height for you. No, that's in general. That's the way I would measure it. Other people might say different, and it's just my opinion and my experience.
Okay. So. Yeah. No, it's going back to talking about logic in forms. If we look at sort of, you can talk about weapon forms or empty hand forms, but can I just talk about when you look at an empty hand form, all right? When you talk about logic in it, what do you mean by that? Can you just talk to me about some basic ideas, sort of? For example, Is it the form always must finish on an attack? Is that correct?
No, it's a false assumption. That, I mean, it should, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Fei Lung Chi, for instance,
I was going to say
Fei Lung Chi finishes a press down,
but that could also be a
and then finish.
You can interpret it as a
well, you could. Yes, that's true. You can interpret it as a strike, because you can say someone's going to kick you, so you're striking the leg.
Yeah.
So you can interpret it like that. We can play with words all we want that. But yes, it should always finish with a finishing strike, as you say. But that isn't the only way to see how a form is a logical form. It has to be a form which, first of all, the ranges are correct for the techniques.
Right.
Okay,
So
the
give me an
techniques have
example.
to finish. Well, I mean, if you're shuffling and punching and so on, you're moving one direction, going forwards, and then you've got to stop at some point. And I'm not going to go into, that you do this, then you do that, then you do the other, because people won't know what I'm talking about. But basically, you'll go into your maximum length or reach, and then you'll be turning in another direction, do something very close, as if someone is attacking you, and then counter with a countermeasure and a finish, and it tends to be like that. Some are more elaborate than others, but it tends to be like that. But also we have to take into account that forms, even in Lau, have specific exercises in them as well. Yeah. But my view is, and I know this is only my own personal preference and not anyone else's, but I hate to tell a student that's just an exercise. Right. Because it may well be, but if I'm not looking for a use for it, then I'm lazy. Right, It's as simple as that. So everything, remember we talked about the beginning of the first set a couple of podcasts back?
Yeah.
And the first move is to put your hands together in front of you, make fists and pull them back.
Yeah.
And we established that is literally someone's grabbing your wrist and you can rotate your hand and grab their wrist and we pull them to you. So people miss that because they often say, well, this is the preparation for the form.
Yeah, right.
This is a preparation we do in every form.
Yeah.
But they forget that it has a use.
Yeah.
So when you come to something like Bakbajan and you do the first exercises with up and pressing down up and pressing backwards, those are literally exercises, but I'm searching.
Right.
To change the speed of them will change their usefulness.
Yes, yeah.
So, but like
you have
I say,
to do it logically, right? If you're going to break down the breathing exercise of the Bakbajan, you can't just start saying, "Oh, I'm going to do a strike behind me." And
for anybody who's done Lau Gar, Bucking Kong, right?
Bonking what? Bonking Kong.
I call it, okay. I call it Bonking Kong, so I had to be really careful with my words then.
What's this? Some sort of monkey abuse?
Buck 8.
I know.
King Kong. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the 8 wonders of the universe. That's what
yes, King Kong. So
yeah.
For anyone who's done that,
hang on. What are the 8 wonders of?
Oh, don't go into that, please.
All right, just check it. You know I got to ask, right?
Yeah.
Go on, for anyone who's done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So.
Stop looking for more chicken to eat or whatever you were in.
No. I was just moving a plate.
Oh, were you? All right.
Yeah. For anybody who's done that form, higher grades, much higher grades, they will recognise that there is a strike backwards in exactly the same way as you do it in Bakbajan.
Yeah.
Except it's done with vigour, so with a bit of vinegar. So it's different in that sense, okay? But in the one form, you say, oh, it's just an exercise. Mm-hmm. And then the other form, you do exactly the same move and call it a technique.
Yeah.
So that's why I prefer not to call things exercises. Even if they are exercises, I try my damnedest to search for ways of using it technically.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what helps me learn.
Yeah, that's what helps you. Do you think that's possibly overanalyzing something, though? I mean, I don't know. I'm just putting that.
Well, it is only a single move. It's individual moves, so it's not like I'm not trying to completely change the whole perception of the form.
Sure.
I'm simply just saying, okay, if my hand goes back like that, how could I possibly use it? And pushing it backwards like that. If someone was behind you, then there it is. A groin.
It's funny that you mentioned Bakking because it's what you would class as a training form in Lao. There is no bow or salutation at the start of that form, isn't
No, that's right. Yeah.
What makes it a training form? Because it's for those people who don't know, it's the only sort of empty hand form after your black sash, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm afraid that escapes me because, like you say, it is the only one that is specifically a training form, except for the first sets, because the first set hasn't got a bow.
Yeah.
Second set hasn't got a bow. So those are training forms if you want to put them in that kind of category. But it's a form that exists in between all the weapons and so on, and after the development of the syllabus up to the first grades, the first black sash. So it does apply different concepts. But I think if you do it and you start to search for the moves from the previous sets, a lot of those movements, although the hands may be different shapes, the purpose of the techniques could be the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I'm not going to go deeply into it because
we'll save that for another one.
And there's very few people, not that many people, that know Bakking Kong to a high degree anyway. So.
Right. But we can certainly save that for another podcast because I do want to talk about similarities like that. But going back to just generalising about forms and what makes them logical, I mean, a form really, should start at a certain point and should end at the same point. Is that right?
Facing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Usually, that's for the Lau Gar forms.
Sure.
People would argue that other styles do differently. They end up all over the place, so they might end up facing a different direction as well. I can't understand that, though. I think it's just because they make a mistake and they keep that mistake.
Yeah.
So,
the other day when I sent you some video of me doing the forms, you mentioned to me, you said that my grammar was correct, but I need to create. You used the term characters. Need to create characters in what I'm doing. Now, obviously, the people are going, what? Then you went on to explain it to me. Could you explain to me what you saw in my forms, and hopefully to try and help people at home and just elaborate a bit?
Yeah. When we talk Kung Fu, it's always a good idea. I find it's a really simple way of teaching beginners and anyone else to use the concept of writing, of English or whatever language, of writing. So you have A, B, C as a development of individual movements. Then these movements become, you put them together, they become words, and obviously the more you train, the more capable, the more elaborate the techniques become, the more you can do with them, so they become sentences, and eventually you can form chapters, paragraphs, whatever, paragraphs, chapters, whatever. And so and eventually you can speak volumes, But what I says to you about your form was technically everything was pretty much correct, right? No one's ever going to be perfect. No one's ever going to be the same. We're all different individuals, so we're going to have slightly different perceptions of it. Being that every single movement has at least 6 uses in theory, in our mind's eye, we will be thinking about doing something different to the next guy, or we may be thinking about doing something different to what we did previously. So it depends totally on what's in our mind when we do it. So when I said to you, your grammar is correct, what I meant by that is it's technically right, but you've got to, and I did say this to you, you've got to do your sets like you were fighting. Right. And then, of course, I also said you fight like you're doing your sets, but the sets have firstly got to be like you were fighting. So you're presenting the words to people perfectly, but who speaks perfect English?
I don't know what you mean, mate.
No one does. They don't speak perfect English. And the example I gave you was a German word, which was "Wie geht es Ihnen?" How are you, whatever. And but that's like proper grammar. Forgive me if my accent is wrong, but it's like, as an example, it's proper grammar. But then when a German would say hello, he would say "Wie geht's?" And that would be it. He wouldn't go "Wie geht es Ihnen?" Like you would read in a phrase book. And when you learn a language, you get the perfect grammar in the book. But they don't teach you the slang. They don't teach you and you have to learn that over a period of time, so that you then fit in as a national. And then you can feel like a national, because you can understand the language. Well, I mean, just imagine what people are like when they come over to England and they've learned French in Belgium for years. They've learned English in Belgium or in France, and they come over to learn the language properly, and they just go, you know what, I think I may as well go home, because I can't understand a bloody word they said, because they ended up in
Scotland.
Or
I saw the Polish the other night.
They got off the ferry in the northeast. Perfect English in Norway, and they get off the ferry in bloody Newcastle, and they just go, what? So it's that what I'm talking about. You've got, when you do a form, you have to apply it and throw a few, little idiosyncrasies out there, because, in other words, it's so important to do what you're doing, not do what you're thinking people want to see, but do what you are actually applying. So it can look quite aggressive. It can look quite messy.
Yeah.
But it's got to work. So some people will do the set completely messy and not know what they're doing, and they'll completely throw the techniques out of sync, and timing is wrong and everything. But if you practice a set perfectly, as you are doing, and it becomes perfect grammar, you've got to eventually start to be fluid and don't hold back. Just let it go. Yeah. But that is when you start to master your footwork. Because if you throw yourself too far forward, too much information, or too much energy, too much inertia, if you like, you end up losing footwork. But there's nothing in any form, or anyone should ever suggest that there's no reason why you can't make 2 steps instead of 1. As long as you end up on the correct foot, there's no reason why you can't shuffle instead of stepping, as long as you end up on the correct foot afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got to, your body is your height, and, you know, whoever you're fighting may be a different height. You've got to be able to reach them, and that's not always possible.
Yeah, you've got to sort of...
ad-lib.
Ad-lib, there you go. Ad-lib, and don't be afraid to. Because
no, don't be afraid to.
I think too many people, when they're learning forms, obviously learning forms is different than training.
Well, but that's the grammar. We're learning the grammar. When we're in our English school, you know, in our English class, we learn the proper nouns and the proper, you know, vocabulary, and we learn the grammar. Once we get out of that class, we don't talk like that. Yeah, right. We don't write like that. And that's what people have got to develop. So as they're learning their martial art, they most definitely should learn the proper grammar. If you don't have proper grammar, you will not be able to do that set properly. You'll never be able to talk properly. You know, you've got to understand, and so that other people understand you. That's what our language is. But fighting is exactly the same thing. You know, you've got to do things where other people can respond to them so that you can train. Otherwise, you know, you ain't got a clue. And of course, when you're fighting, you can take that away. It's like creating an argument. You know, you create an argument, you set someone up for a rebuff, and, you know, you win the argument. It's just, that's the same with fighting. You know, change the way you say things, and then they say, yeah, but you said this. You say, I didn't. I actually said this. And, you know, and they go, oh, yeah, you did actually. You did say that. So, you know, that's how language works, and it's exactly the same with martial arts.
So, I mean, I think you've kind of answered this, but just reiterate the point. When you said, I want you to create characters, James, what did you mean by that the other day when I was talking forms?
Yeah, when you're fighting, when you're doing a form, you've got to imagine that you're attacking someone. So therefore, you know, you might get to a point where you've covered yourself, or you've parried, and then you do the next technique, and you hone the technique, you get it perfectly on target. And then you've got to imagine what response the other person, or the imaginary person, he's doing. Is he moving backwards now? Is he standing his ground? Is he moving to the side, you know, within the context of the form? And then apply it in that way. So don't just reach the same place with 2 techniques, because that doesn't really, it's not reality, is it? You know, you hit him, he starts to move backwards, you follow it through. A good example of that is in Farkun, where just before you go down, cross your legs to go to sit, you are, you know, you're striking, and then you're following it up, you know, with an extra long step.
Gaucho,
a
rolling punch. That's what you're talking about. For those people who you're talking about the first rolling punch in Gaucho, Farkun, if you think. Yeah. Because you've always, you know, if you're doing a form, and you can look at an example of that in you know, Lau Gar, but look at Magpie Jern for all those brown sashes listening, as you're actually no, sorry, Lau Gar, you're following through that technique. You know, when you repeat the palm up block and punch, and you do it 3 times. Again, that's for repetition, but you're chasing it. So what you want to think about, and this is something you've said to me. I mean, if you're striking someone and they're going back, you've
got to follow it.
You've got to follow it, because
you can't be pulling your hand back as well.
No, but they're also, because them going back is dissipating your energy because you're attacking forward. So you have to really chase it. Etc. It's really interesting that But you did use the word perfect in my forms. I'm just saying, everybody, perfect. Although with me, it's like, forget Vergaten, and it's Ich bin ein Donut, Anyway, we're talking about forms, right? Which is a good segue, because I want to just talk a bit about chop choi, right? Okay. I know you don't want to talk any more about forms or whatever.
No, I'm quite happy to talk about forms, as long as people. It is only my opinion, and I think a lot of people tend to think that instructors should know bloody everything.
I get that.
You find that you'll forget the stuff that, like I said earlier, people have certain traits, certain interests, like competition fighting, like technical stuff or whatever. Mine is the physicality of martial arts. It's not knowing what it's called, it's not knowing where it came from, it's not understanding the history of a nation that is 30 times bigger than my own. How the hell am I going to do that? So I'm not interested in that. It takes away what my real joy, my real purpose in life is, to understand the science and the usefulness of the techniques I'm doing. If otherwise, what's the point in doing them?
Listen,
I don't want to jump around with a flimsy weapon. I want a bloody sharp sword, and I had a damn good sharp sword. My wife left it in bloody England.
I remember. You cut yourself under the arm with the sword that you gave me. I'm still It's great. It's bloody sharp.
I ordered 16 swords from the USA, which was real good steel. Right, good solid swords, real good steel. Very, very sharp, and as you know, the Dao, the Chinese broadsword, is fatter at the blade end than it is towards the grip and towards the cup, and so of course they come and they got a bit of oil on them. So I kind of wiped it. And of course, as I wiped it, the blade is getting bigger and bigger, and it cut a hole in my shirt as I give it a wipe. And then I had a phone call from all the people that I'd given these swords to, and they each of them had cut themselves in one way or another. So it was brilliant, because you have some respect for it from then on.
Of course,
and from then on, when you do the sword, you throw it around with gusto, but you know damn well where it's going, because if you don't, you better duck. Because I used to do the garden with it. That's how I used to train. I used to chop trees.
I know. I was there. Picking up the branches.
Yeah. It was amazing. Just don't get too close.
Yeah. There's a great video on our YouTube channel actually called Lau Gar Weaponry. And Steve's, we're in Bromsgrove, and Steve's just talking about just very briefly, some of the weapons. So if you go on our YouTube and check out the video, but you've got to subscribe to us. Please do. That would be great. Right, going forward, chop choi. I want to talk about it.
Yep.
Give us the lowdown, Mr. Newbie.
Well, chop choi is an unusual form within the 7 forms that we do, isn't it? It has a specific knuckle, the forefinger knuckle. Okay, phoenix they call it.
Phoenix eye. Fist.
Yeah.
And was it Esfunan Choi? Now I know you don't give a shit what it's called, but
chop choi.
There are some people on YouTube who say chop choi refers to the shape of the single knuckle on the fist. It's not. That doesn't mean chop choi.
Chop is the it's called drilling punches. It's a drill. It's the way the hand moves and twists. And imagine that you're thrusting rice into a paddy field. You're planting rice, right? So you would hold the rice. Each handful of rice, and I'm not talking about just the little ricey bits. I'm talking about the plant, okay? And you obviously then thrust the plant into the mud under the water because it's a paddy field, so it has water over it. It's a very wet field, and you're thrusting your hand into the mud to bury the plant so that you can grow your rice, and that's what it refers to, the thrusting of it. It's chop choy, okay, and it's the movement that you make with that knuckle, not just striking with the knuckle, but twisting. So when you do the first 3 punches, they are drilling punches, but they are rotating as you do so, right? And also when you go down on your knee, you're doing exactly the same thing. Right. I mean, there are ways that you can do it. There's some, we can crack, if you like, crack the knuckle on someone's, their feet. Dragon's tears. That's what it's called. The top of the foot. With the, what are they called? Are they what's these bones in the hand? What are they called?
Metacarpals.
Metacarpals or metatarsals. What are they?
I don't know.
T for toes.
I don't
metatarsals.
know. I don't know.
Nor do I.
To me, Mr. Newbie. I just know if you hit
well, this is it. You learn these things and you forget. Anyway, it hurts. So you can do it like that, like a crack, or you can drill it down to strike exactly the same target, but doing it in a completely. So it's rotating in any shape or form. Most techniques will rotate. Are you doing
the form now?
Yeah. Can you hear me? You hear me smacking the bed?
I can hear you doing like rustling and stuff. I'm like, you do realise like this is a radio show.
So my computer screen is off. Right. So I've got like a mirror of myself. So as I'm doing it, I'm doing it in front of the mirror. So anyway, so going back to that, I apologise. That's gone on a bit. Just it is sharp as in drilling punches. Yeah. It's not the shape of the punch.
Now there are 3 shuffles in this form. Correct. I'm
going to have to think about it. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, there is.
5 shouts, 3 shuffles.
5 shouts, 3 shuffles.
Yeah.
Common mistakes with this form. What would you say?
Okay, going down is one. People are not tight enough. They're sitting on their toes, and not putting the foot flat.
Right. So if you're bending your toes back as you sink down on one leg, that's not correct. You're pointing your toes out.
You have to point your toes and put your instep on the floor flat, and very tight to you, very close. Tiny weeny. I'll give you. There's a little bit of information.
Ooh.
Okay, just simple. Okay, Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
Yeah.
Okay, so because people look at a set like that and they go, "What the hell are you going down for?"
Yeah.
Okay, why would you go down like that? Because if you're fit enough to get up, you can go down. If you're not fit enough to get up, don't go down. Right. Simple as that. Okay, so same concept, Staffordshire Bull Terrier. In the 17th century, 16th, 17th century, they decided that bull baiting, where a bull terrier or a bull mastiff at that time would attack a bull, which is why it's called a bloody bull mastiff. Okay, or a pit bull, as you say.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're called pit bulls, and they would be bet upon. People would bet on the dog to the closest one to the bull, and if they could get it down, then great. They'd bite their ear, they'd grab their ear, pull it down, the same as they would in a dog fight.
Yeah.
Their ear or their knackers. They go straight for the knackers, by the way, a dog.
They go straight for the balls, Dave. Get a twist of balls, Dave.
That's exactly right. That's what a pit bull does. That's what any dog does.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what they discovered, what they realised was the dog kept getting kicked. Right? It's too big. The dog was too big. So they bred it out. They bred it smaller, and you end up with a Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
Right.
Now, by the time they'd done that, of course, people had gone to America, so the pit bull remains in America and here in Canada. Okay? But in England, they're very rare and probably illegal to own. But the Staffordshire Bull Terrier was small enough so that when the bull kicked, it would completely miss the dog. And so the whole concept of going down in the set is to get away from the hands and concentrate on the target of the foot as it's kicking.
Yeah.
Okay, so you become a much smaller target in effect.
Yeah.
So that's really the purpose behind that kind of technique. But when people try to do it today, of course they haven't trained in any way, shape or form that they would have done the old days. So it's a very arduous and strenuous technique for them to do. And so they would never do that in a real fight. They would never consider it. But think about it in the amount of training they would have done in the earlier times. They would use that technique. So, and much the same with Falcune, similar kind of thing. So, but for a different reason. So these kind of forms are very interesting because they hold the value of the old style. No one is going to train them in the way they used to. And so that's why a lot of people go, oh, that I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to bother learning it. I'm not going to bother teaching it. And then that's when the style starts to fall apart. So you lose those really, really valuable, parts of history for that reason. So anyway, so that's the one of the things that tends to be wrong. The other thing is people tend to open their hand. The whole hand style, the whole form is meant to be with that fist, with the phoenix eye or phoenix fist. And even when the only time that you don't use that phoenix fist is when you're doing the palm against the fist in order to knock the elbow back. Okay, that's the only time you do it, when you open your palm to do it. Now I have seen people keep the knuckle there and avoid it by sticking it between the thumb and the fingers, in other words, missing that completely. But, well, there's no logic in that. No. Because you're not hitting anything, okay? You're not striking or blocking. Yeah, exactly. You're hitting yourself. So if you do that, what's the point? Just you can move your bloody fingers, So just move them and just make a normal fist and do the elbow backwards. But
ad-lib a bit, people.
Ad-lib a bit. And then never, when you're doing the block around your face, around your neck, it is still the knuckle. It is not an open palm. As I've also seen.
Going to the elbow, a lot of people don't
short elbows.
Yes, a lot of people have short elbows. You can tell it's short because their elbow will drop down the side of their waist.
Well, it's not just that. I was going to say, it's not just that. They don't even come from behind their back. If you watch someone doing it from behind and you see them do an elbow, you'd have to be, pretty much up their ass in order to get hit. You just, you cannot, there's no elbow. It doesn't go anywhere.
So raise your fist pretty much underneath your armpit. And you will notice the range of your elbow protruding out the back will increase.
Exactly. You've got to hit your elbow. You've got to hit your palm, your fist rather, with your palm so hard, as well as obviously pushing your arm back, so much so that your your fist goes right up your armpit.
Do you know? You're getting excited talking about this because my sound levels are going.
I'm physically doing it as we speak.
The sound levels are just jumping in the red, and I'm going, don't get it in the red.
Sorry, I get passionate.
Right. No, it's all right. Absolutely. See that, people? 40 years plus trainees still doing sharp choy. There you go. When you're going down on one leg, kneeling stance, the knee and the toes should be pretty much in line with each other. Is that correct?
Yeah, very tight. Very tight. And down.
And as we've mentioned, 3 shuffles, 5 shouts. I think what a lot of people don't understand about sharp choy is a lot of the movement, I mean, in Kung Fu in general, but you can really emphasize some of these, the wrist movements in this set. Using the wrist to almost wipe across, almost like the willow palm or passow or whatever you want.
It's exactly the same. You rotate out, you rotate in.
But you're doing it with a closed fist. And isn't it interesting, like, like you always say, and we will talk about this on another podcast, but a lot of the movements are essentially the same, just either, you can do it with a closed fist, you can do it with a single knuckle. Yeah.
I was going to say, I want you to imagine that someone's grabbed your hand and you intend to use your single knuckle because maybe you haven't got the power. You've got the training to do the single knuckle, but you haven't got the power because you're a much smaller person compared to your target. Yeah. And this big target has grabbed your wrist. So you are doing that rotation exactly the same as you would in the first set or anywhere else, so that you can then dislodge or disconnect the grabbing arm before he gets a good grip, rotate, and then you're so close to strike. But you've got, the ribs or whatever. But this is because you're very close in fighting. If you are that close and you haven't made the knuckle by then, it's not going to form by the time you hit that person. So that's why people have prepared formed knuckles previously when they're close up. So if they are intended to go close in, and obviously if you've got a big opponent like I've just described and you are small, then you're safer close in. So as you go close in and the person grabs hold of your arm, you do the rotation, your knuckles already formed, and you're able to use it. But if you don't form it by that time, you're going to break your fingers on the way in. So don't do it.
When you do make the Phoenix Eye Fist, it's got to be very solid, because I see a lot of people in video footage or whatever, there's a noticeable gap. You can see air, you can see daylight through your knuckle, right? So when you do it, it's got to be solid, and like with anything, if you're going to want to use a technique like that, for Christ's sake, train it. Just do it on a heavy bag. If you do it on a heavy bag and you think, Jesus, and you've done it.
Poor Bob's good.
Yeah, Bob was brilliant, wasn't he?
Bob's good. Just keep hitting him on the knuckle, on the forehead with your knuckle. Didn't
Martin once knock someone out with doing that? Hit him in the temple.
They said, he says, that don't work, and Martin went, yeah, it does, and he hit him, and he collapsed.
Was that like pre health and safety?
I guess.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, that don't work. Yeah, it does. Whack down. Brilliant.
Yeah.
One thing I skipped over on Chop Choy, right, is talking about the bow itself.
Yeah.
Explain the reason we have the salutation and its connotations.
Okay. Well, the bow itself is obviously the Shaolin bow. Okay. At the time that. Yeah. Well, no, that's actually not true, because the actual bow of the monks would have been a single hand, in respect of the person who allegedly chopped his arm off in order to become a disciple of Bodhidharma. Okay, so he chopped his one arm off, his left arm, and so they always have their right hand in the centre, that's their bow.
Didn't Bodhidharma say, "I'll teach you when the
snow turns red"?
There you go. When the snow turns red. There you go.
Yeah.
So every time you see a Shaolin monk with a single hand in the middle,
that's to respect. Yeah, that's to respect that monk.
Yeah.
Again, this is history that I was told, and other people will have different versions or just completely disputed. It's up to them. I'm only telling you how I know it. I don't know why I have to keep on bloody apologising for what I'm saying. Why should I apologise?
It is your podcast. What the hell?
Yeah.
If you've got a problem, just give us a call. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just write in. Just say you're bloody wrong. Tell me about it. And give me your version. But absolutely. Don't give me pages of it, because I ain't going to read it.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you ask me, don't ever ask me to explain the bloody history of the lion, because the lion dance has got about 600 different versions of how it came about. Yeah. So, and then you're going to ask, well, what's the colour of this lion represent? The colour of that lion? Shut up. I'm not interested.
Yeah, you were master, Mr. Newbie. You were supposed to know this stuff.
No.
Come on.
So,
go on,
where was we now?
Talking about the bow, the kinlan.
Yeah, the bow. Okay, so the fighting monk's bow became apparent after the destruction of the temple when they were. It's a secret bow that you would display to people that you met on the. If you met another group of people that, like a group of revolutionaries or a group of people you may have mistook for revolutionaries, and they might have been on the side of the Qing dynasty, okay, or Qing dynasty, or whatever you want to call it. Then you would put your bow together, your left palm over the right fist. The left palm represents the crescent moon, and the right fist represents the sun. When they're together, they're the brightest thing in the skies. Yeah, in those days, that's the brightest thing, the sun and the moon. So, when you do that, if the other person then went, oh, wait a minute, we're not supporters, so then they pull their swords out or put their fists up to fight you, the left hand is pushed out to begin to be the defender, defending arm, and the right fist is already made. So there you have the preparation for the bow and the connotation for it.
So the crescent moon and the sun, when you put them together, it's the brightest thing in the universe, which is
and Ming means brightness,
and it was also the name of a dynasty. So if
it was the name of the dynasty they supported, the Ming dynasty,
So, sorry, you didn't just mention that. That's why I thought I'd say it.
That's fine.
It's actually more of a political connotation when you think about it. The
of
bow.
Course.
Than anything. So it
used to be a secretive bow, but even Action Man does it today. So
Action Man, the greatest hero of them all. Sorry. So
that's the history of the bow, okay? And of course there are more elaborate bows where they pull it back behind to the side and stuff it out, and then step it back to the left side as you step back, and then to the middle to finish. Like a Lau Gar, or when you do for Hoksonying or for Hokwanying or whatever, the tiger and crane combined form.
Well, I don't know what the Fu Hok you're on about, but. Go on,
So anyway, that's so yes, there are far more elaborate bows, but keep your bow simple. Don't be a Duke and Do practitioner. And spend half an hour doing different people's bows because you claim to kind of respect them, and yet at the same time you just don't do the style because you don't respect it. Seriously? Because you don't think it's worth it.
That's the funniest thing. Yeah. Oh Jesus. Right, chop choy. Anything else to say about it?
The end of it. When you bring your into the last horse position, when you get into the horse position, you pull your arms together, you trap them together, okay, and then you drop them down. When you drop them down, those arms must stay together until the fists have rotated completely down towards a similar target, about 6 inches apart. And the reason for that is simply that if you open your elbows before you drop those fists down, all you're doing is opening yourself up to get hit. So, and because you're in a horse riding stance as well, it's not a good idea. So,
but remember, guys, you've got to think outside the box. These techniques don't have to be done individually in a horse riding stance.
Oh, of course not. No, but when we're doing the set, we have to have a logical outcome, don't we? So we have to look at it as a logical outcome.
I think we just to mention in this in Chop Choy, just the middle section when we're doing sort of the wok, as you would say. Can you just briefly talk about that, and then we'll knock it on the head as far as Chop Choy is concerned.
So what party exactly are you meaning?
So after you've gone down, you've come up, you've taken a step, you've punched, and then you're going to do a 90-degree turn, okay, into what you can just imagine both hands, both fists are sort of presented out, and then you.
Oh right, so they're just blocking away. Yeah. So as if someone was you're back on a. Some people go into a hanging stance. There's no hanging stance there.
But can I just ask you to start with the actual 90-degree turn itself, because there's a little detail that I always appreciate you talking about.
Oh, where the one hand remains on the outside all the time.
No, I was talking about actually when you pivot. Do you pivot on your heels or do you pivot on the balls of your foot?
I'm going to pivot on the on the heel of my foot. I'm going to turn it in almost like an 8 stance.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is because it tightens you up, and as it tightens up the stance, it's very much like when you do the things with your wrist, where you completely coil your wrist as far as you can. Yeah. And what does your wrist want to do? It wants to uncoil. Yeah. So it makes it physically easier. It's less energy used to create more energy, if you understand what I'm saying. So what you're doing with that is, as I will turn on the heel of my foot. It will become a very tight step, almost like an 8 stance. And then when you move, you're coiled, and you uncoil and it enables you to shuffle forwards much more fluidly. Yeah. That's why I do that. Yeah.
There's also another reason you do it, and when you turn on the heels of your feet, for example, doing a 90 degree, you're actually moving closer to the intended target, as opposed to if you turn on the balls of your feet, you're actually moving yourself away. So one could be interpreted as offensive or defensive.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from. Yeah, I know where you're coming from with that. But in the case of the set, it's only the back foot that turns in, so you're not going to get any closer. You're going to be coiled, then you'll shuffle, so you're able to move forward. But yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, often people turn on the ball of their foot when they should be turning on their heel, and often vice versa. Yeah. So in order to be closer, if you stood with your, as you just said, in a normal fighting stance, and you turn. Say your left fighting stance, so you're going to turn to your right. If you turn on the ball of your foot, you're going to be further away from the target on your right. Yeah. If you turn on the heels of your foot, both feet, then you're going to be closer. Yeah. It's just it's a little idiosyncrasy that.
But it's detail. I like detail.
Yeah, it's great for beginners to learn this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And people who don't understand it.
Yeah. Talk about the wok in it. So we're in the middle section of chop choy, so to speak.
So it's the where the arms are together, where the person is going, where you've just simply turned before you shuffle with the two strikes, with the double strike. Yeah. It's always good to do a double strike singularly. I know that doesn't make sense, does it?
Well, you've always said to me 2 is 1 and 1 is 2. So.
Yeah. So basically, as a person is going to dive at you or come at you, try to grab you, whatever, you're withdrawing, but please don't withdraw onto a hanging step. It's not a hanging step. There's no point. If you bring that foot back, then you then have to take it forward again, and that wastes time. So leave the foot where it is. Certainly rock back onto the back leg, bent knee and so on, and keep the toes are up, the heels, you're on the heel of the foot of the right foot, and you're basically opening up that person's attack. Yeah. So as he grabs you with both hands, he's trying to grab your shoulders to headbutt you or whatever, you're withdrawing, you strike out, rotating those fists, hitting
them up.
Yeah, bang out, and his arms are going to guide your fists as they rotate back again and flat, straight towards his collarbone, his face, whatever you want to hit.
But it's worth saying, guys, we will be doing some videos soon, so we will certainly be able to explain a lot more. Mr. Newbie will be able to explain a lot more than actually talking about it.
It's always, I like people to ask me questions, send me questions. Sure. I'll send you a video by all means. Yeah. I'll always, because people often have similar questions, we can make a video and provide people with the information if they require it.
Guys, as always, if you have any questions about the sets and you want to do, a written question, or you want to send us a video, whatever. Just for our consideration, you can send us a video. Do it on Facebook.
Yeah, because you can always argue you disagree with me. That's absolutely really good, because it helps us to learn. Absolutely. And it'll help you to learn if you get the logic in what I'm trying to say, because I'm just thinking in a logical sense, and backed up with a bit of experience. But obviously, if you have an argument and say, well, look, I don't do it this way, I do it this way, and then you show me it on a video, I can then see what you're trying to talk about, because you can describe it, and then we can have a much better discussion.
Yeah, that would be
and I can then answer that either by emailing you back, or by sending another video and with a different purpose or reason.
Right. So in short, in conclusion, Chop Choy, it's a very short set. As we've discussed before, a lot of the sets in Lau are quite short.
Very narrow, very
explosive,
limited.
but it's the first set where you really start
Footwork.
moving. Yeah, footwork. So footwork.
And if you are going to learn Chop Choi, a suggestion for your training is do it without any of the hand movements. Right? Do the steps and get good at the steps with the little idiosyncrasies with the footwork. In other words, turning the heel, turning the toes, whatever, hanging steps, sitting down, kneeling down, horse riding stances, low horse riding stances. Practice all the stance work without any hand movement, and then do the hand movement without the stance work before you do it complete.
There you go, guys. Let that sink in. Certainly tough stuff. Guys, we've got to finish. We've got to book out. Mr. Newbie, thank you so much for another.
Thank you.
Wonderfully technical episode of the Kung Fu Podcast. We really aim to send this information.
Did we answer that guy's question, by the way?
I think we kind of did in a.
Well, you sent him some information anyway, didn't you? You sent him some information.
Yeah,
But if it's got anyone's got any specific questions, I'd love to hear it, because I mean, I'm sitting here in Canada. I'm the only person in Canada that I know of that trains Lau, and
it's
kind of a bit of a problem. Yeah. Well, let's put it this way: you are closer to Toronto than I am.
Yeah, I know.
That just gives you some idea of how big it is.
Oh, marvellous. Well, I don't feel sorry for you at all. When you look out your window and you see those mountains and breathe that fresh air, I really don't feel sorry for you, just so you know. And I hope you choke on the DQs and the Tim Hortons and all that. I really do. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Don't choke, because I'll have no one to teach me. Guys, thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast. My most sincere thanks to my teacher, Mr. Steve Newby. Steve, do you want to say bye?
Yeah. I am, yes. Okay, goodbye. I was just going to send you a video of, because I want to walk today, and I got a video of a woodpecker.
Okay. All right, that's lovely. Lovely video. Listen, hold that thought. We've got to sign off. Okay. I await the woodpecker video with great anticipation. Guys, take care. All the best now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I kick your little Beijing ass right now, man. I ain't scared of you. I know you know that little tricky shit. Come on.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Guns. Now, why doesn't somebody pull off 45 and bang, settle it? No guns.
What are you eating? Well, your pork. You eating your pork?
Yeah, I go eat my pork sandwich.
Oh, you got to eat my pork sandwich.
I got crumbs everywhere.
Have you? Oh well. Are you quite ready to go, or?
No, not yet. Hang on. I want to eat my sandwich before we go.
All right. But you know what I'm like. I'll probably put this in there. While you're chomping on it, you know, I've just. Have you ever watched a Cynthia Rothrock film?
Yeah, many years ago.
I'll tell you what, she gets hotter the older she gets. Jesus, Cynthia. I'll tell you what.
She's very small. I've met her. She's very small.
Is she?
Near to a grasshopper.
Yeah. Well, she's very bendy as well.
Well, yeah.
But are you done yet?
No, give me. I got 2 more bites.
All right, 2 more bites.